Welcome back. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Flowers, aka Flo, aka Call Me What You Want. Just don't call me lazy. And of course, once again, I am joined by
Y'all know who it is. He who shall rise above. He who stands above everything else. Metro Meta.
Meta. How you doing today, man? How's your summer been?
It's hot out here.
I bet. What was the temperature like today? Or just like the
Um,
past few weeks?
let's see. It was supposed to be like raining today. Um, it says on my computer it's 81 degrees.
Okay. That's not bad because this week there was a cold front. And you want to know what the cold was? 89 degrees. So so yeah, man. Are you I know you are your summer's kind of winding down here. Prepping
Unfortunately,
for that next step,
yes.
ready to get back into the classroom. We have to say, oh, I can't remember his name, but before we really get in, we have to say rest in peace to the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh. Um, what is his name off the top?
Off the top, I would.
Kazuki Takahashi.
Yeah, Kazuki Takahashi.
And so we just have to say our rest in paradise, or on the other side, safe travels to him. And just for I want to say, like, I don't know about you, Morgan, but really it was like I had Pokemon cards, but Pokemon cards, they were just more of like a collection thing. Like I didn't actually like play with them. But Yu-Gi-Oh was really like the first trading card game that I was really involved in, that I actually was actively buying cards, actively playing. I was even in the Yu-Gi-Oh club in middle school. So he just had like a very Yu-Gi-Oh really had like a chokehold on my life for a few years. And I will say that after Pokemon, it wasn't Digimon that I gravitated towards. It was definitely Yu-Gi-Oh
Def-
because
Definitely.
it just seemed so fun and exciting. What was your favorite card?
I definitely love the agents. That was I bought an agent structure deck. And that's a pretty popular archetype. They actually got some new stuff. There's some new support recently. And I just loved Yu-Gi-Oh! From like Duel Monsters, and I collected a lot of card games. I collected Chaotic, Bakugan, and I remember playing with them, but Yu-Gi-Oh was always so fun and interesting. And the Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds is probably one of my favorite animes. It's amazing. I love the show and the characters, and even the message of the show was really, really interesting and really touched me. And I like go back and rewatch it all the time. And recently, as many people know, I've recently gotten on another kick of Yu-Gi-Oh. So I'm in this, like, I'm constantly watching them. I just built an Exorcisters deck, um, and I of course have my live twin deck that I still run. So I just it really took some time for me to like get used to the fact that this has happened. But shout outs to him and being able to create one of the most interesting and amazing universes ever created. If you ever get the chance, there's a anime YouTuber by the name of Mother's Basement. He did a video on like just how crazy and unimaginable uh the Yu-Gi-Oh universe is if you try to understand the logic. And you should take a moment. It's like 14 minutes. Definitely watch it just to see what a creative and interesting world this man was able to create. You're muted, Marcus.
Who was your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist? Like out of like
You
Yugi.
say Fudo.
Okay, my favorite was Jaden. Uh, what was your favorite card?
Um, Probably Agents of Earth, Agent of Earth, just because it's such an iconic card for the Agent card game. That or Akiza's Black Rose Dragon.
Okay, my favorite was Elemental Hero Avion. Now I couldn't necessarily call it out in a duel. I'm not that advanced, but I will say I enjoyed seeing it on the television show and seeing the evolution of Jaden. But once again, rest in peace to Kazuki Takahashi. We just hope that we are able to continue on your legacy through the joy that we have got through Yu-Gi-Oh! And actually, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was one of my pandemic watches. I was watching that occasionally. So if you ever get a chance, just pick it up, read the manga. You can watch the anime. It's all on Hulu or Netflix, one of the two. It's probably on Crunchyroll as well.
Yeah.
But we are not here to talk about that. Once again, rest in peace. We are here to talk about Thor, Love and Thunder. Let me read the synopsis. Thor embarks on a journey unlike anything he's ever faced, a quest for inner peace. However, his retirement gets interrupted by Gorr the God Butcher, a galactic killer who seeks the extinction of gods. To combat the threat, Thor enlists the help of King Valkyrie, Korg, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, who, to his surprise, inexplicably wields his magical hammer. Together, they set out on a harrowing cosmic adventure to uncover the mystery of the God Butcher's vengeance. Let's just give, before we hop into anything, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
I'd give it a good 7 or 8. 8. I'd be going with 8.
I would give it a 6.5. Before I even dive in, let's of course it's starring Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman is back, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie.
Shout out to Valkyrie.
It is directed by
Taika Waititi,
who is also billed to be directing a Star Wars film. Let's just we're gonna talk about a little bit about Takeshi later. But Thor for Thunderous with 140 million franchise best opening, and it's crazy to say this, but that seems kind of pedestrian, and it's wild to say that because 10 years ago, if you would have told me Thor would have been the 5th best Marvel opening, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, Thor, are you for real? But it made 143 million domestically. It made 159 internationally. Yes, I was right. For 320 million weekend opening. That's really good, and it is the best. It is the 3rd best opening of the pandemic era, behind Spider-Man: No Way Home with 260 million, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness with 187.4 million. And this is the direct sequel, of course, to Ragnarok. Both were directed by a maverick filmmaker, Taika Waititi, and it is the 4th Thor movie in the Thor franchise series, and it is the 29th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Woo! 29 of those things.
They just getting started.
That right there is incredible. Say what you want about the Marvel machine or the Disney, 29 of anything is fantastic. So for them to do 29 Marvel movies and to make money on every single one, that's a win for me. That seems like a win. Regardless, we're gonna talk about the creative process. I'm actually about to play this short about just the graphics. Of course, if you listen to our graphics and anything like that, you know how I have had my issues with the CGI and how I expect more from Marvel, being that they are this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate under Mickey Mouse, the biggest entertainment empire in the world. But here is a short clip from a interview that the director and Tessa Thompson did with Vanity Fair.
Okay. Does that look real?
In that particular shot, no, actually. It It doesn't really, right? When you look close.
Does it need to be more blue?
Well,
but does he look real?
No, none of us.
Does she look?
Something looks very off about this. But no. He changes hues, don't you think?
Yeah.
Put in the light. Sometimes he's blue, sometimes he's a little grayish.
The atmosphere there has a darkness like no other. It's as if color fears to tread. It's unmistakable.
Okay, there's one little funny thing that happens in this. See this shot? When I go, it's because it used to be when he would wake up. That was my reaction. But you just left it there randomly. But I kind of don't mind it. Yeah, look.
It's unmistakable.
It used to, that.
I never noticed it. I was never looking at you.
Trust me, I did. It's
watch it again.
kind of funny and
It's great.
It doesn't make any sense, but I love it.
It's unmistakable.
That performance used to make sense because he would wake up, he'd go, ah! And then that was my reaction. But now I just do it for no reason, which is cool. And that's also an indication of how sometimes someone can make a performance look crazy when it wasn't.
Okay, let me just say, as a person who edits videos and does a little bit of graphic design, that hurts me when somebody makes fun, when somebody approves of what they watch and then they turn around when it's out in the world and then they make fun of the very thing that's been plaguing Marvel for literally decades. I wouldn't say decades. Morgan, I felt that I felt like it stepped on the work and the creativity of those VFX graphic designers and those editors. Like, those people put in long hours, days, weeks. We talk about crunch in the gaming industry, but there is now the new Marvel crunch, and even VFX artists are refusing to work with Marvel due to stress and unrealistic deadlines. VFX calls Marvel the worst client to work for. And unfortunately, in this new world that we're living in, it's becoming, if you have the most money, of course, people are going to work with you. And that's kind of like the get all when it comes to working with Marvel with VFX designers now.
Yeah, it's definitely like VFX is one of those things that people don't honestly think about when they're thinking about the movies. Like, it's commonplace for people to be like, oh, that looks fake, or oh, that wasn't real. But like, when you actually talk to a lot of VFX designers, they're like, there's a lot of this movie that's not actually there that you never actually notice. And so putting in that work, I think, is something that they've been doing, and definitely getting more recognition and eyes on them is something that Marvel should be doing.
Yeah, and if you look at the credits, it's looking like Marvel is cutting back on editors, and they're not paying as many people. And it's like, when you're talking about doing 30 of these films, plus you have like the Disney Plus series and everything that they're creating, it's like, hey, maybe you should take more time and put more effort into the people who really make the magic. Like, of course, it's the actors and the actresses and the characters and the storylines and the plots are all there. But it really comes down to making sure that the VFX graphics designers are getting their just due.
We definitely see this a lot, like with the Pokemon series, where they keep turning these games out over and over again, and they've really just, like, they don't have time. Like, and a lot of that, I think, now is coming from, like, when you talk about it in Pokemon, they just use the games to, like, launch the generation, and then they make their money off of, like, the toys and everything like that. And when you're starting to see that happen with Marvel, where they need to push out certain series, certain shows, certain movies in order to move this plot forward, but they're not actually, like, Tim pulling it. They don't have the time to build up and actually make such a quality product exactly. So they have to cut corners somewhere. They have to rush the CGI because there's not enough time for them to get everything done in time for, like, the next big team up movie, which they've already announced. We might not know when it is, but, like, we have to get basically it's like you're reading a book. Like we have so many chapters we got to get through, and we got to get to this point in the plot by this time. And it doesn't matter what has to be done. We got to get to this point. So we need to introduce this many characters, and we need to introduce this many villains, and this person has to be this way by this date. And so they're trying to push it all in. And I think we're having two problems with that is, number one, people are getting exhausted because they're starting off all these plots that aren't going anywhere. Like, why did we have to watch Moon Knight? What was the point of that show? What did we learn from that show that's going to connect to the next plot line? We don't know, because its big team up movie isn't out yet. But they needed us to know Moon Knight, so they're putting out Moon Knight. They need to set up Captain America, put out Captain America and Falcon. They're putting all this content out to build up to this big chapter without actually having to like develop those actual individual chapters.
Right, for sure. But yeah, it's do you think something needs to change over there?
I don't know, because at one, like, I know me and Marcus, you and me, we remember what it was like when like WandaVision came out and everybody's watching WandaVision. All the jokes are about WandaVision. We're all focused on it. And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out. Same thing. Everyone's paying attention. Everybody's watching. Everybody's talking. And then about What If, you could sort of like not pay attention to. They were sort of not paying attention. And then and then you had Hawkeye. And again, people were like half watching that. Moon Knight, I definitely think, took a hit just because of its more mature like station. And now we have Miss Marvel. And again, people are watching it. But I'm wondering, a lot of people, I think, are thinking, let's take a break. And not just with Marvel, but like Marvel, Star Wars, like give us a break from all this content. And as somebody who I have been watching the Star Wars stuff, like I didn't get the Grogu memes. I basically have just like, well, every once in a while I'll check in on Star Wars, and it's pretty nice to be like, oh wow, this happened. This is fun. So I definitely feel like if Marvel wanted to, taking a bit of a break in between these and giving us like a breathing point might be something I would want to look into.
Right, for sure. But yeah, so moving on, let's just talk about this was interesting. So the Rotten Tomatoes score, it has a 68% critic rating and an 81% audience score overall. Do you think the tides are starting to turn with Marvel when it comes to critics? And it's seeming that the honeymoon, like it's kind of crazy to see, but it's seeming like the honeymoon phase between Disney, Marvel, and movie critics is over. And it's like, okay, you have this fantastic creative idea, but it's going to like, it seems like critics are saying we're going to need to have more than just the characters from the comic books on the big screen. Like you're going to actually have to put more than just a basic story on there.
Well, let's get into it, because I feel like we've talked a lot about the creation of the movie and not a lot about the actual movie. So coming in, we have Thor. He's jumping around with the Guardians of the Galaxies, and you sort of get this montage of like him getting back in shape. But honestly, going into this movie and going forward, we see Thor is sort of like a character a lot like Captain America, like at the end of Endgame, where like there's not much more for him to do. Like he's saved the world a billion times. He's running around with the Guardians of the Galaxies, but you can honestly see he's like half doing that. He spends half the battle just sitting on a mountain waiting for Star-Lord to tell him to help him. And he still has that comedic light, but like you get the feeling you can still see that broken Thor, that man who was lost literally everything, lost his brother like 3 times, lost his dad, lost his sister, lost the person he loved. He's on his own. He's basically just jar hopping. And I was interested going into this movie to see, where do you put this character now? Like, what is the next step for Thor? How does he get out of this sort of rut? And what I liked about this movie is they sort of answered what their answer was going to be at the beginning of the movie without letting you know. Like at the beginning, we see the kids of Asgard, and Gorr the God Butcher kidnaps the kids of Asgard, which is what forces Thor to look after him. Which, spoiler alert, it's a subtle reference to the fact that at the end of the movie, they give him a daughter, Love. She's the love, he's the thunder. And so they sort of say that the answer to where does Thor go from here is they make him a father. They make him basically into Odin. Now he's having to teach the next generation. And it's interesting for me because I think a lot of the criticism this movie got, and a lot of the criticism that Doctor Strange got, leads back to the fact that they are less Marvel movies and more of just regular movies with Marvel paint over it. We see a lot more of Taika Waititi's comedy all throughout this movie, just like we saw a lot of horror elements all throughout Multiverse of Madness. It's sort of Marvel like letting their foot off the gas and letting these directors take control of these movies. Because I feel like Marvel, they got a lot of pushback in that all their movies were the same. Like we were saying this in like Iron Man 3. We said this during Thor the Dark World, which is part of the reason why I gave this movie an 8 is because I sat through Thor the Dark World. That movie was awful. It was boring. There was nothing interesting about that movie. And at least with this and Ragnarok, we get a flavor in there. That's what I like about it. It has a flavor. It's still Marvel, but it got some flavor in it. And so I think what Marvel essentially realized was, look, we're basically making the same movie. We know the plot points. Sky beam, CGI fighting the evil yourself. And they were like, we need something to make this interesting. We need something to make other people care about it. And what they essentially realized was if we just add a little bit more spice, a little bit more of whatever the director is good at to that franchise, to that movie, it makes it more interesting. That's what happened with Thor Ragnarok. It made that movie more interesting. So we have Marvel trying to let their foot off the gas to make these movies more interesting, but in doing that, they're making them less Marvel movies. So I wonder, Flo, do you think that there's a disconnect in that people wanted more elements of Marvel in the Marvel movies, or do you think they want less elements of Marvel in these movies?
Here's the thing. I think people, just like specifically like for a person like myself who was very familiar with the comics and seeing that they took from one of my favorite comic book authors, Jason Aaron, and they took directly from his run with Jane Foster becoming Thor and Gorr, the God Butcher. And it's like, I really would like to see, I really would have liked to see more elements of Gorr's background instead of what they just showed us. I would like to see more of Jane's battle other than, she's dying of cancer because she has Mjolnir. When it's like, no, there's an entire backstory that you could have told. Instead, like, I get that it was Thor's movie, but Jane was also a Thor as well. And I would have liked them to have more explored Jane's point of view and Jane's viewpoint as a Thor and her journey, instead of like, I know how important that Thor Odinson was, but we've been on this journey with him for literally 14 years. Like, we know, like, at this point, we know what we're going to get. Like, we know what we've seen him go through as a character, as a hero. When it's like, okay, this is like, when he's like with the Guardians of the Galaxy and he's like doing this thing, it's like, these are your glory years. This is your retirement. This is your reward for all of the hard work that you have done with saving the world numerous times. So I would have liked for Marvel to have more explored Jane's theory and Jane's world instead of just, here's a team up between the two Thors and the last surviving Valkyrie. If anything, I would have liked to see more of the Valkyrie's journey as the last remaining person.
Valkyrie needs a series or a movie. Like
just like the last remaining Valkyrie ever. I would have liked to hear more about that instead of just like a one-liner, you just the last year people, or even like her sexuality. Like, they kind of like hinted around it, but like they didn't really explore it. And for Marvel to be so progressive and it's like, hey, we're out here, we're for the community. It's like, okay, really prove to us that you are for the community and put yourself out there. Like, I feel like taking the reins off of these directors is a good thing, but at the same time, these directors aren't pushing the envelope enough. Like Taiki, I did not find the humor funny. Like it was cool, but like when it became time to really feel for these characters, I couldn't. I felt like I was just watching bloopers. I was watching a parody of Thor: Love and Thunder. That's what it felt like.
I definitely feel like
it felt like, okay, is this like ha ha ha, like this is what the really director wanted. It's like I felt like I was just watching a parody of what Love and Thunder should have been, and I didn't really get that full experience that I really felt like I deserved as a viewer. Like I know that's super selfish, but it's like, okay, I wanted more because I expected more, considering the source material that you guys have taken from. Like when you read Thor: God of Thunder with that Jason Aaron's run starting in 2012, when you read that run, you're like, whoa, this is like incredible. This is amazing. And so when they say, okay, this is what's happening now, and this is how we're going to do it, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm super excited for it. But it's like, okay, I know what the comic run is like. I know that Marvel doesn't take everything from the comics, but when you're taking from such an iconic series, and it's like they were grasping at straws, and they were only trying to hit the most common denominator. And that's my issue. Like, it was a cool movie. It was fine, but like, that's it. Like, I know for sure I'm not gonna watch it again. I feel the same way with the Multiverse of Madness. Like, I'm not gonna watch that again. I saw it in theaters. Same thing with Eternals. Like, okay, I'm not gonna watch Eternals. Again. Same thing with Shang-Chi. I'm not gonna watch.
Oh no! I rewatched Shang-Chi. That movie's good. That movie is good. That movie is good.
Shang-Chi is good, but again, it's only surface level. Like
Shang-Chi had a lot going on. I really like the character development. I really like the aesthetic. And I really feel like Shang-Chi had amazing action. And I did like him as a character. He was an interesting character. I feel like Shang-Chi is as close as we've gotten to like an OG Marvel Marvel introduction movie, like Doctor Strange or Iron Man 1. I thought it was really good.
Well, and I don't have a problem with them changing origin stories, but when they're changing origin stories as you, like for example, we don't do podcasts the same way we did podcasts 3 years ago. Like, if we were still doing podcasts the same way, people would say, oh, that's crazy. Like, there's no growth there. There's no maturity. And it's like, okay, you guys are going to the same bell. You guys are ringing the same bell over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but like, where's the substance?
I feel like it's there. From the beginning of the movie, they set up that Thor was going to be the father. That was what this whole movie was about. Was like, Thor, you're going to raise a child. And honestly, if you were to ask me, like, OG Thor, he's going to raise a child, I'd be like, that's crazy. That man's not ready for a kid. But I do feel like through the beginning to the end of the movie, they set up enough moments where I was like, yeah, I think he's ready to be a father. Yeah, I think he can do it. And I really thought that the highs and the fun that they were trying to have with the movie was amazing. Like, the scene where all the kids are like fighting with the power of Thor, I really enjoyed that scene. I gotta be honest, I love kid empowerment, love watching that, and it was fun. And watching Thor like try to calm the kids, or even one scene that I thought was very interesting, that maybe they played too much of a joke in it, but when you see Asgard and they're all arguing because their kids are there, and you see that Valkyrie just can't get stuff under control, and Thor just silences them with one word. He just goes, Asgard. Everybody's silent. They part ways. You can still see part of that, like, original Thor. Like, oh, these people respect him. Like, even though he's not king anymore, his blood, his name, that has power in these halls. And I definitely feel like if they had more scenes like that, more scenes where they're showing that people still respect Thor, I feel like this movie would have been better received. I feel like a lot of the backlash is people feeling like they're treating Thor like he's the joke, like he's not supposed to be taken seriously. And I feel like the reason why they did that is because that's what Thor became. He lost all those people, and then in Endgame, they turned him into a joke. Like he was a joke. He got a bunch of weight. He was arguing with people on the internet. Like he became a joke. And then we get to this movie, and people are like, "All right, Thor doesn't look like that anymore. Thor has his life together. He can't be the joke anymore. We need respectable Thor back." And I feel like that's what we need back in the next Thor movie for people to like get better in line with this.
We'll see. I'll say like overall I was just I expected like I feel like as just like time has like gone by, and maybe it's just because I've gotten older and my life experiences have changed over the years. Like from like I remember when Marvel or like when Iron Man came out, I was in like high school. And so it's just like of course like I've grown and like I've gone through life and I've had these experiences. And it seems like as I've like been reading comics, it's like the comics have been growing with me. And even like now when I read certain when I read certain Marvel comics, it's like, okay, I can see the growth here. Like I can see how necessarily this isn't for my age group, but I can still relate to it. But with the movies, it seems like once I pass a certain age, it's like, okay, this isn't for me anymore. And that's completely fine. I don't have anything wrong with that. But don't continue to bill it as like, oh, this is a film for everyone when the replay value won't be there. And that, like, I'm not going to go back and say, you know what? I'm not going to sit down like 10, 20 years from now and say, or like prayerfully say to like my grandkids or my kids, like, hey, y'all know, I'm going to show y'all some cinematic magic and put on Thor Love and Thunder. Like that just won't make sense. Like it won't make sense at all. And so I just feel like Marvel, it's time for Marvel to grow up.
But I feel like we also have to keep in mind that these movies, as much as they are for like the comic book fans, they are still just for families. Like
yeah, no, and that's completely fine. Like I have absolutely no issue with that, but just like don't treat me like I'm stupid either. Like don't treat me like I haven't seen the 28 other films to set up this film.
Yeah, I definitely think that looking forward, because I'm looking right now, I'm trying to figure out what's the next project in the pipeline. I know She-Hulk is coming out next. That's the next TV show. Do we have another movie? Is Wakanda Forever still coming out this year?
Wakanda Forever comes out November 11th, I think.
So that would be the next movie part of the MCU.
Yeah.
So we have She-Hulk's next. I think that's going to be a fun, interesting TV show. I want to see these stories sort of like connect more. And I feel like that is where the investment part of this comes in, is like, when do we get to see these characters that we've been watching? Because when it came to Phase 4, I feel like Marvel, again, with my whole thing that who's running the Avengers, I feel like Marvel scattered everybody. And now with like their new projects, they're pointing out even more scattered pieces. I really feel like people are wondering, all right, where's this going to? Like, what are we working towards? Why are we learning on our characters? It goes back to like when the first Avengers came out, Thanos, that's what this is all going to. And we were happy to sit along because we were like, oh, that's the guy we're going for. I definitely feel like with Loki, they tried to be like, this is what we're going with. Kang the Conqueror, this is what we're worried about. And then they just scattered the universe. I feel like we need that. Like, we see a lot of like mini villains, mini problems, I feel like we need a moment where everything comes together, or where parts of these things come together. Where it's like, all right, this character, and this character, they're teaming up, and people need to start sharing some information. Because there's a lot of questions I have going forward with like Loki, like what with Loki running around, Loki and Sylvie, and the multiverse being broken apart. Are they going to interact with Thor? How is that going to happen? I definitely feel like there's a lot of what if questions, and I feel like we need to get away from what if and start answering those questions, or at least like pushing some people together. And I don't think we're going to get that with Wakanda Forever. I think we're going to get more what if questions, but I hope with like I think the Marvels is after that with like Kamala Khan and Monica Rambeau, and Captain Marvel all coming together. I feel like if they can land that, that would be the first really good, like, this is where we're headed type of moment to happen.
So you basically said the same thing as me, just in a different way.
Yeah.
You just said, hey, you literally, no, I'll let you talk. I said, hey.
I didn't disagree with what you said.
No, I know. You just said what I said, but longer.
Mm-hmm.
I just said, hey, don't treat me stupid. You said, hey, everything needs to come together. So we're literally saying the same thing.
I just said I want a big team-up movie, which is what we come to Marvel for.
Okay. So overall, Meta, he gives Thor.
A set of 8. There is one thing I thought was interesting that we didn't notice about, like, Thor's daughter, Love. I don't think that's her actual name, but she's the first, like, non-comic book character we're seeing on screen where we don't have a comic book reference for her. And with Marvel building up, like, the Young Avengers, I'm kind of interested to see where they go with her. Because they definitely, like, tease that she's supposed to be powerful. And with her having, like, no background, nothing to substantiate what she is, she's basically just Marvel's wild card in the MCU. And I definitely feel like, again, that's Marvel letting off on the brakes some more, but I definitely think that that could be something very interesting.
For sure. So you said you would give Thor Love and Thunder 8 out of 10?
Yeah.
Okay, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Would you recommend this to people?
Of course. It's a great time.
Okay, I would recommend it as well. It could be a fun little date night movie or whatever. You'll like it. But yeah, once again, thank you for listening. I would just like to say on behalf of 26 and Glencoe, thank you guys for your continued support, your continued patience as we're still working things out. We're on separate coasts now, so we are still, we're still trying to get the kinks out, but last month was our most downloaded month. So we would just like to thank you, appreciate y'all for that. If you haven't already, check it out on YouTube. Watch Meta's Denver Fan Expo review and reaction. That's about 12 minutes. You won't be disappointed. Once again, check out our past reviews as well. And coming up, we are going to do I guess after Wednesday, we'll do a Miss Marvel just entire season recap, since it is the last, it's going to be the season finale. So we're probably going to do a recap for that. And we may have something planned that we're thinking about doing. So, but yeah, once again, make sure you're following Meta on all social media platforms at MetroMeta26. Follow me on all social media platforms at Float My Hero. Make sure you are following the brand at 26 and Glencoe on all social media platforms. That's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel as well. We're still trying to build that up. We haven't forgot about y'all YouTube channel. We're still building you up. We're still working on it. And until next time, peace.
See ya.